Hey everyone, welcome back. In last video, we saw that what kind of security website may use or what kind of security websites are using. In this particular video, we are going to see those in the practical. I'm not going to tell you like how to set up, but I'm going to show you how it looks like in the backend, right? So without wasting time, let's get started. Let me share my board quickly so that we will have the idea what we discussed in the last time and what kind of practical we are going to see in this particular video. So as you can see is right here, these are the securities that we discuss that website are using. Okay, so whatever is on the red, these are the client side securities, or you can say client side protections. Whatever is in the green, these are the on the network level, and whatever is in the sky blue, these are on the OS level. Okay, so let's see one by one. First is obviously login, then we have two-factor authentication, then we have SSL, then we have web application firewall, then we have the on the OS level we have firewall, which is on the OS level, then we have permissions for the file, then we have certificate based authentication. If this diagram looks like weird to you or not familiar to you, please watch our last video, which is really small but it will clear a lot of points. Okay, so without wasting time, let's switch our screen and let's try to see the practically what kind of authentication or securities website are using. Okay, so let me open my browser and let's open the website called github.com, because GitHub is kind of a best way to demonstrate the security. So when we click on the sign in, it obviously shows the username and password to enter, right? So these are the first type of authentication, as we saw, login authentication, right? Let's click on the sign in and then it should ask for two-factor authentication. Right now, as you can see, it is saying that authentication code. So I can send authentication code either on the SMS, or I can send on email, or I can use Google Authenticator app or any other authenticator app to enter my two-factor authentication code right here, and then I will get access to my GitHub account, right? So yeah, that's the two-factor authentication. Then there is a SSL. So what is SSL? As I said, SSL means that this is my browser, this is the server of the Google, and whatever connection traffic is going, I'm saying hi, I want to log in. Google is saying send me password. Whatever the communication is happening in this between, this communication is encrypted, otherwise anyone can see it, right? So the communication is encrypted using the certificate called SSL certificate. Okay, if you want to see SSL certificate for the Google GitHub, we can click on this icon right here, and as you can see, okay, let me share my screen. So as you can see right here, you can click on this particular icon, and here it is saying connection is secure. That means it is using SSL certificate. So if I click on this particular connection is secure, and then I click on certificate is valid, we can see actual certificate that is issued. Okay, so basically there are providers of the certificate where we can get this certificate. Other than provider, no one has the authority to issue SSL certificate, because it's a really crucial part, right, of the website security, because whatever client is sending to the server needs to be encrypted, and needs to be encrypted with the right certificate. Otherwise, let's do one thing, let's go to the next point right here on the board. So we have web application firewall. Okay, so in order to understand web application firewall, I know in the last video, in order to explain web application firewall, obviously I chose Google Cloud as an example right here. Okay, but Google Cloud is itself a little bit complex. Okay, if I show you Google Cloud right now, you will be like gone. It will be, everything will be over the head, right? So let's go step by step. First we will explore the simple cloud provider, and then we will go to the Google Cloud provider. Okay, so this web application firewall, this particular topic, I will explain using the DigitalOcean. Okay, so let me share my screen. So this is the DigitalOcean account I have. This DigitalOcean is also cloud provider which provide these servers or VPS. Okay, so on DigitalOcean I have created one VPS where the website is hosted. Obviously the website is not hosted, but for example website is hosted, which is fluxset.com. Okay, so this is the server, this is the IP of the server. When I said WAF in the diagram, that means web application firewall. So where is the web application firewall on the DigitalOcean? So as you can see, On the networking, in the networking tab, I think we should find the firewall, right? Yeah. So when we click on this networking tab, as you can see, we have the option called firewalls right here. So we can click on the firewall, we can create the firewall here, and basically we can add the rules right here. This is just a basic firewall. It's not the packet filtering firewall. It's a really basic firewall. It will block the traffic, it will block the access to the port, and that's all. Okay, so yeah, this is the web application firewall. So basically this firewall can protect my server which is created right here. It has nothing to do with the security inside this server. It is just before this server. Okay, so if you check our diagram right here, as you can see, this is web application firewall, this guy right here, the square. It is not the server security. The security of the web application firewall from the cloud provider comes before this server. Okay, so now let's try to do one step further and let's try to see the security of the server itself on the OS level. Okay, so this is the sky blue that topics that we are going to see. So for that, let's do one thing. Let's copy our IP address right here. Let's open our terminal and let's log in inside this server. Okay, for login we need to do SSH and root, which is my username, and add password. Okay, that will give me the login. So let me click yes and let me enter my password for the server, and I will be logging inside this server. Okay, so for those who know, this is Linux. Okay, and for those who don't know, please try to Linux and then come back to watch this particular tutorial. Okay, so this is a Linux on the shell level. This is not a GUI Linux. Whatever we do on this server, we do using terminal, we do using the shell, which is bash shell by default. Okay, um, in order to interact with the server, you should have knowledge how to do operations using command line in the Linux. In the Windows also we have command line called PowerShell. Okay, we can open the PowerShell, and if you do ls, as you can see, it is showing the files in the root directory, right? So I have two options: either I can do ls here, or either I can go in my computer right here and go inside the disk C. So whatever you see right here is also right here. Okay, so okay, so it is I think not right here. Okay, so the location is, as you can see, the location here is slash users slash abhi. Okay, so if I go here slash users slash abhi, whatever files you can see right here, these are the exact same files in this particular command line output also, right? So yeah, I whatever I can do on GUI or graphical user interface, exact same thing I can do with the command line also, but you should know the command line, how to use it, right? Similarly, you should know how to use in the Linux. Okay, so let's go back to the point. So we need to check the firewall, then we need to check the file permissions, then we need to check the certificate based authentication. Certificate based authentication will be a little bit hard, but let's go. First thing is firewall. Let's go back to our screen. So in Ubuntu, we have UFW firewall by default installed. I said earlier, for Ubuntu, we have UFW. For CentOS, we have Firewall D. Okay. So let's type UFW and -h and let's see if it is installed. Yes, it is installed. So basically, if I do UFW status, as you can see, the firewall is inactive. So first let's do one thing. First let's try to add one rule. Right now whatever SSH login we have done using port 22. So let's type UFW allow port 22, right? So that will not to port 22, let's say port 22. Okay, so that will allow port 22 the connections through the port 22. Okay, so right now if I enable the UFW, it will not disconnect my connection because I have already allowed the SSH connection, right? So yeah, that's all about this particular topic, which is firewall, we saw the UFW. Then let's talk about the file permissions. Okay, for file permission, let's go back to the server and let's do ls right here. So as you can see, we have one folder called snap, and obviously inside that folder there will be file. So if I do ll or ls dash a, it will show the exact same output. Okay, sorry, ls dash all, that will show exact same output. So as you can see right here, there is a something written d r w x then dash and whatever it is, right? So these are the permissions for the files. So as you can see, this is dot directory, which is current directory. Then there is a dot dot slash, that means one directory back, which is root directory. Then there is a file called dot bash rc. Then there is a file called dot cache, right? So all of these file has a different permissions. So how can I see? Obviously this part is a permission part right here. Okay, so when you see r, that means read permission. When you see w, that means write permissions. When you see x, that means execute permissions. And whenever there is a d, that means it has permissions from the group also, right? So yeah, that's all about the permissions. How to set permissions, how to check the permissions for different users, how to set permissions for the groups. These all topics are advanced topics, so I will cover in the another video, in the Linux video. Okay, so yeah, that's all about the file permissions. So right now, suppose there is any sensitive file which should not be executed, otherwise it will trigger some kind of vulnerability. Then we only allow read and write access to it. So as you can see, this is wget hsts. That file only has a read and write access. Yeah, that's all about the permissions. Okay, now let's clear the screen, and command is clear basically, and let's talk about the certificate based authentication. Okay, so if you check our board in context for certificate based authentication, I explained that certificate authentication for database. Okay, but it can be used anywhere. So let's talk about little bit about database. In our diagram, as you can see, this is our OS. So this box is our OS. Inside OS, we have this server also, files also, and database also. Okay. So this kind of setup we call the self-hosted setup or self-hosted database setup. That means database is inside the server where website is also hosted. So that means we are not using dedicated database, we are self-hosting the database. But some website are using dedicated database. Okay, if there is any big website, they cannot just use in self-hosted databases, they need to use dedicated database, like Google, Amazon, they use dedicated database. So what exactly is a dedicated database? So dedicated database is nothing but we remove that database from here, and when we create database server differently. Okay, so let's say, okay, just give me a second. So let's say this is the database server which is created differently, like we did for static files, right? So let's say db, and we can connect that db to the exact same files. Okay, so that's what we call dedicated database. So we can create our own dedicated database, or we can use the service provided by cloud providers. For example, this is the DigitalOcean account, right? Here, as you can see, it is providing the service for database also, right? So this is the database we can create here, and then we can use in our project. Okay, this database is called dedicated database. Okay, so now for database authentication, we have the option. If you are using PostgreSQL, so there are different type of database, obviously. MySQL, MySQL is there, PostgreSQL is there, and MongoDB is there. These are the popular ones. I will cover only three. Okay, so for PostgreSQL, we have authentication, certificate authentication is there, username password authentication is there, and token authentication is also there. Okay, so there is a one, just for information, don't check it, there is a Supabase, which is a PostgreSQL database with some kind of framework. Okay, that will provide the certificate authentication and token based authentication for database, right? If you don't know, right? So yeah, that's all about the securities. I know it will be a little bit over the head if you are not familiar with these terms, but take the overview. Try to look for each and every concept. Okay, this way you will have like eagle eye view on the website architecture, how it looks like, so that next time when you do bug bounties or bug hunting, web penetration testing, whatever it is, then you will take a steps by keeping that picture in mind, that yeah, this is how typical website architecture or website environment looks like on the back end and front end, and this is how the security that website are using looks like. Okay, so yeah, that's all about the basic securities of the website, and practical. It's not kind of practical, but yeah, I showed you in the real life examples how it looks like. And that's all for this particular video. If you have any doubt, please let me know. If you